Hello, everyone. Welcome to the pre-show for today's A Plus 220 1002 live study group. I guess the live part is sort of implied because I'm here. I'm live. Hi, live. I'm actually here, my real person. Although if you're watching this on the replay, then it's not as live. But when it was recorded in front of a live studio audience of one, I guess. Do I count as the audience? Probably not. But here we are anyway, the live stream. We've got the live event chat up on the website at professormesser.com/live. If you're watching on YouTube. Now, if this is a replay, there's no live chat for the live event. Although 24/7, there is a general chat room that is always available on professormesser.com at the bottom of every page. So I'm often in there along with a number of other folks tend to hang out, answer questions, see what's going on, talk about current events, what they're playing on their Xbox, and of course, technical topics. And usually if I'm not there, somebody else is in there talking and communicating and doing that kind of thing. Let's make sure people are joining. Welcome, everybody who are joining. How are you? Thanks for being here. Thanks for coming. Wasn't there already an A-plus study group this week? Now, this is the exact opposite. That's a comment from Newt in the chat room, who said, "This is the polar opposite." Newt, you are the exact opposite than everyone else who said, "We really want to break this out so that there's one study group for the first exam and one study group for the second exam." And I said, "I don't want to do that. It took years for that to finally come to fruition." So finally, this week, as you're here watching history happen, we finally have one A-plus study group for the first exam and one A-plus study group for the second exam. So, of course, the third comment in the chat on the second study group of the week is, "Hey, wasn't there already an A-plus study group this week?" You are correct, sir. You are not wrong. You are right on it. You're wondering, oh, what in the world? What's he doing to himself? Why? Well, okay, so other people are. Ghost says, "No, I love the two study classes." Hold on. He meant that as it was awesome, and we should keep doing this. Oh, okay. That's how I'm interpreting it, Ghost. Hello from Virginia. Anna's in Virginia in the chat room. We're getting things ready. I actually haven't tested everything. We should probably turn some of this stuff on and make sure it works. I've got about 1 million different buttons in front of me that have to somehow figure out how they operate. Green light is good. This part is good. People are joining. Welcome. I mean, I could do this whole thing by myself, but I got to tell you, not so great. Not so great a study group when you're the only one answering the questions. Let's get the presentation up. That will be good. So presentation up. How's it look? Does it look good? Yeah, it looks really good. Now, I wonder, I can't see it on here, though. Can I? Can I see this on here? Really can't. It's just not big enough on my screen to see what I want to see. I'm having some issue here with the type of converters that I use to go from HDMI to SDI. And just weird things are happening from time to time. So I'm busy trying to troubleshoot and get things figured out. I think that's the real challenge sometimes, is when you get that tiny little thing. Hello, Chicago. South Carolina is here. I miss South Carolina. I used to travel up there quite a bit. It was part of my territory. So it was nice to do that. You're from the world's largest outdoor shooting range in Baltimore. I would never have guessed that the world's largest outdoor shooting range is Baltimore. And I'm guessing largest by number of bays, or largest by distance that you're shooting. Is it one of those 1,000-yard shooting ranges, or is it just one that has 1,000 bays that I could go and shoot a pistol? I don't know. But I did not know that the world's largest outdoor shooting range was in Baltimore. Who knew? So you're guessing now. Newt has doubled down in the chat room, by the way, and has said, so I'm guessing from now on, there will be a study group for each A-plus test every week? No, there won't. No, I should have probably... No, there won't. No, as delightful as that sounds, granted, I can only imagine dealing with me for this long is going to be a challenge. Twice a week? Come on. However, next week is Network Plus. The week after that is Security Plus. So there will be other study groups, but just 1 week a month, we will do both study groups. Yes, let's make history. No, let's not. It takes about half a day just to prep for this, and then half a work day. Not like 12 hours. Doesn't take 12 hours to prep for this, but it takes a morning or an afternoon to get all the questions done, get everything ready, set up the pages, set up the streaming information, doing all of that. It's not difficult, but it's time consuming. So it's something that I would like to do more of, but it's hard to streamline it. And I'm considering maybe we just do some live events that are just Q&A. You can call in, you can ask questions in the chat room, and we just do Q&A for an hour. I don't know how appealing, how compelling that type of media would be either. I'm not sure anybody would be interested in doing too much of that. Hey, Canada's here. Hello, Montreal. Bonjour. We've got, of course, Mrs. Professor Messer is she's Canadian. Canada says she's Canadian, but she was born in Miami and has an American passport. It's a long story. Yep, she's an anchor baby. So she is a Canadian anchor baby who does not have, according to Canada, has all rights to be Canadian. But making that happen is a little bit of a challenge. We got to figure that piece out. It may take things like DNA tests, amazingly enough, to make that happen. We'll have to see. We'll have to see how that goes. Algeria is here. Very nice. Welcome. Michigan is here. Fort Leavenworth, welcome. There's some folks that are busy. Thank you for joining. Thank you for being here. I don't say that enough, but it's really nice that you're here to do this. It makes it so much easier to go through these questions with you here, but it's more fun when you're here saying hi in the chat room, making comments and making questions and asking questions in the second hour. It's so nice. So thank you for doing that. I was worried doing 2 of these a week, maybe overkill, but I hope it won't be, because we're going to do all 1,002 questions today. It's very focused. So maybe that works out. Maybe it's something we should have done a long time ago. Who knows? It must be -3 Celsius in Algeria. That seems a little cool. Seems a little cold. Morocco is here. We've got 2 minutes before we get started, everybody. So come on in. If you're watching this over on the YouTube side, you'll notice there's no chat there if I click the right buttons. There is a chat on the Professor Messer website at professormesser.com/live. So you can always find, that's the chat I'm talking to back and forth. And of course, where I am, what's the temperature? It's 76 degrees Fahrenheit. Fahrenheit. We are not, is there an easy way just to click and get the C? Do I have to click buttons? Do I have to click a lot of things in this just to get the Celsius from this? Yeah, you bring up Weather Channel. You have to change the options. No, we don't want to see the C here in the United States. It's damaging to us. We can't handle it all on one screen at one time. It's too much. No. Let's simplify this a bit. -6 in Montreal. No. Don't do that. Don't go like that. I'll prefer, we're in Florida here. So the world headquarters of Messer Studios is in Tallahassee, Florida. So it's a little warmer here. Highly recommend it in case. Newt in the chat room got his A+ certification last October. Great. Very nice. Congratulations. That's, and you got it in before all these changes happened. So that can help too when that's going on. We got 30 seconds. Do I have everything ready to go on my side? Probably not. Do I? There we go. That's ready. This is ready. We're recording here. I'm recording in the other room. I'm recording here. I have 3 recordings in this room happening and another 1 recording. Yes, well, my better half, we had a conversation about calling during the study group. She'd forgotten. But she knows this time. I told her just before coming in. So we'll see. We'll see what happens, or maybe not. Maybe it'll be something we can all enjoy. Let's see what happens, everybody. Let's get this thing started. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the February 2019 220 1002 A-plus study group. It's getting a longer and longer and longer title, isn't it? That's because this is our first series of A-plus study groups where we have broken out the 1001 as a separate study group and the 1002 as a separate study group. So as you go through your studies and you're trying to get questions that are very focused on those topics, you can simply go to those individual study groups, and hopefully that will help you. The 1001 study group we did 2 days ago. This is being recorded on February the 7th. So on February the 5th, we did the 1001 study group. It's all on the website. All of the study groups, by the way, are always available. You can go back and watch any of them on ProfessorMesser.com. And I'll give you some other information, how you can listen to audio-only versions and a lot of other things too. This live stream is automatically made available afterwards unless something goes awry. Sometimes I have to upload an edited version because something happens with whatever's going on in the world. There's meteors that go by. We've got all kinds of crazy things that happen. Venus is in Jupiter. I don't know. Things happen. But in this case, I think things will go okay, except for me hitting the wrong buttons. See, it's already happening. We have a lot to go through, but thank you very much for your ongoing support. For those of you that don't know, what we do here is we make free training for everybody. If you're getting your A+, your Network+, your Security+, I make free videos. Every minute of every video is posted free online. I'm currently going through the 1001 and updating all of those videos. Those are almost done. And then we shift gears to the 1002. I'm going to do all those videos. Those will also be free and available out for you to see. So this takes time to do. So these will get out there eventually. But right now we have all of the 1000 videos available for you to watch online. So you're more than welcome to have a look at that. Don't forget about the YouTube. If you want to see when those videos get posted, you can get notification by subscribing to my YouTube channel and clicking that little alarm button. And that way, every time I upload one of those A+ videos, you'll get a message that is available. So that's one of those nice things that's there. Also, every day, there is a question of the day, a pop quiz question of the day on my Twitter. All you have to do is follow me on Twitter, ProfessorMesser.com/Twitter. You may have heard of Twitter. We'll talk about differences between 901 and 902 in just a moment for those asking in the chat room. I see you there. I'm not forgetting about you. If you already have your A+ certification and you're someone who wants to earn continuing education unit credits, you can watch this first hour and you'll get 1 hour of webinar-based credit. I will give you an explanation later on in the hour on how you can send me a message so that you can receive a digitally signed email that certifies that you must have watched this. And I'll give you all those instructions. You just have to stick around sometime during this first hour. That will happen. So the A+ exams right now are a choice. There are actually 2 series of A+ exams you could take right now. This is a transition period where we're slowly transitioning away from the 900 series exams and we're transitioning into the 1000 series exams. This is the middle of about a 6 or 7 month transition for everything. The 901 and 902 have obviously been around a long time, since December the 15th of 2015. Those exams will retire on July 31st, 2019. Some of the questions I will ask today will apply towards the 220-902 exam, but some will be different. And there are differences between those exams. So you have to make a decision on what you're going to study. And you could still study the 902, pass the 901 and the 902 exam before July 31st, and you're A+ certified. In fact, you get exactly the same A+ certification as if you were to take the 1001 and 1002. There's no difference. They don't have numbers associated with them. It's not like you have a 900 A+ or 1000 A+. That's not the way it works. You're just A+. So nobody cares how you got it. They just want to know that you got it. And of course, right now, we've been 3 weeks. The 1000 series exams have been out. They were released on January the 15th of 2019. So there's not a lot of study materials out there yet. My course notes are available. The first chunk of 38 videos for the 1001 are out, but there aren't a lot of books available. There's not a lot of study materials. Certainly a vastly larger supply, a larger inventory of 900 series materials than 1000 right now. So there's your balancing act. You have to figure out, do I want to work with the 900 series and go until the time frame and have that stop date, that drop dead date that I have to get this done by? Or do I shift to the 1000 series that doesn't necessarily have 1000 series materials readily available, but I have 3 years to do that? So that's more of a personal opinion decision that you're going to have to make. The two sets of exams themselves, the 900 series and the 1000 series, exactly the same. They're still 90 minutes long for each exam. You'll get a maximum of 90 questions in those 90 minutes. The amount that you have to score for the 1001 is a 675, for the 1002 is a 700. It's exactly the same as it was for the 901 and the 902. So there's not much really different there. In fact, there's not much difference with the exam objectives either. I went through all of the objectives of the 900 and all of the objectives of the 1000, and I did matching and compared them all because I can't make videos unless I know what's changed. So I found of all of the topics that I added up and counted, the 1001 series exam has about 21% new topics that are new exam objective topics. There is a 220 1002, almost the same. 23% of the content is new topics. However, if you look at that, that's almost a quarter of the exam is brand new material. So if you study for the 900 series and then you walk into the 1000 series, you're probably not going to score as well as you could have. So think about that also when you're studying material. That's why I always tell people, always study from materials that match the version of the exam that you're going to take. I'm going to do that again. Always study from materials that match the version of the exam that you're planning to take. Pretty important to be able to do that. So make sure you consider those things. Some people have told me, I'm going to go through the 900 series and then I'm going to do my own matching to see what's new. And then I'm going to just study those and it'll be a delta and it'll measure up and then I'll have everything I need to know. Not a bad strategy, but you have to be very, very consistent, very dedicated to make sure you cover all of the new topics because there's just not a lot of things out there yet. The two exams are almost identical. So this is one where, very quickly in the chat room, because this was a good question when this came up, I'll answer two questions first. The first one was, Anna asks if you're studying for the 900 series and like me in your studying, you know you're not going to be ready to take this exam by July 31st. I'm the same problem. I would never be able to do that in my life to study for both of these exams. Some people are able to study in a week and take the exams. Not me. It takes me months. So you know you're not going to be ready by the 31st. You don't have a choice. You have to take the 1000 series exams. You have to shift gears for the 1000 series exams. Those exams are available right now. They've been available for 3 weeks. So you could go right now and take the 1001 and the 1002 exam. So you've got some options there for those that are working through all of those pieces. The two exams themselves, though, are pretty similar. The content very similar, the structure very similar. CompTIA has done some things where they took printers and bundled them into hardware. So there's no printer section anymore. There's a virtualization and cloud computing section that is not necessarily brand new content. A lot of that was on the older exam, but they broke it out as its own set of topics, which is odd because the hardware section, I don't know, in my list is probably about 30 videos. The virtualization cloud computing section, I think it's 3. So just because it's an entire section doesn't mean it's a massive amount of content. And then, of course, the hardware network troubleshooting at the bottom. Today, we're going to focus, though, on the Core 2, because now they called it the Core 1 and the Core 2. I'm not sure how much that's going to catch on, but we'll see. And it's basically the same. Operating system, security, software troubleshooting, operational procedures. The only big differences between those, of course, there's many changes, minor changes to it, but the biggest change is there's no more Windows Vista on the 1002. There's Windows 10. So you have to know Windows 7, Windows 8, and Windows 10 to be able to pass that exam. It's a whole new set of things. You've got things available to study. But Windows 10 it's almost the same as Windows 8. Don't tell anybody I said that, but it really is. There's also an audio version of this available. If you have a podcast, you're in your car, you want to listen in later, you can add this to your podcatching program by going to professormesser.com/podcast. And of course, video replays of this are always available on the Professor Messer website. Now, after all of that, I know there's a lot to make this happen, but finally, let's do some Q&A. The way that you can do this, if you're watching this live, this doesn't work on the replay, obviously. But if you're watching this live, you can pop open a new browser window and go to professormesser.com/QA. professormesser.com/QA. That will take you directly to a question that's waiting for you right now if you do everything right. There's also a mobile app that you can get for your mobile device on Google Play, on the Apple App Store. It's called the Socrative Student app, and it will ask you for a room name. If it does ask you for a room name, that room name is all one word, Professor Messer, ProfessorMesser. Yes, people are surprised that Windows Vista is still in the 900 series exam, but when the 900 series exam came out, a lot of people were still running Windows Vista. Operating system changed so fast. Microsoft's trying to change that now with Windows 10. Apple figured that out more than 10 years ago. We've been on OS 10 for a very long time, and now Microsoft said that was a great idea. Let's just do Windows 10 and be done with it. We're not going to keep changing this over and over again. Maybe this will help all of us. Now, if you did go to professormesser.com/QA, there's a question there from last month. Maybe you recognize the question, which says, a system administrator would like to configure a partition with the NTFS file system. Which of these utilities would be the best choice for this task? And the utilities there, available utilities are format, filesys, checkdisk, xcopy, and SFC. Format, filesys, checkdisk, xcopy, and SFC. And while you answer those, you can see, of course, interactively, I see this immediately tallying up. And we can see so far, those of you that have answered, 64% of you said format, 17% said filesys, 12% said checkdisk, 5% said SFC, and 2% said xcopy. So you've got a number of different options here, but the majority of you at 65% have said format. So this is one of those that, a good point, by the way, before we go through this, this is a very common type of structure of question that you will see on the exam. So Dutchman Zam in the chat room asks, I'm asking which of these utilities would be the best choice for this task. So the rest are possible. They certainly could be. Now, in this particular example, I did not give you other options. I only gave you one possibility. But on your actual exam, you could be given other options. And the reason I didn't give you other options is that I was giving you a very straightforward question. On your exam, it would be more nuanced. It may say that the system administrator is working at the command line and would like to configure a partition with the NTFS file system. So they add more things into the scenario. Oh, it's at the command line. So you have to find the command specific to the command line. And another option in here might be disk management. So disk management can certainly format a disk. Format can format a disk. But they'll ask you which of these would be the best choice. Your only option would be format. So that's why you have to really look at these questions and determine which of these would really be the best option. Disk management has the great format function in it, but format is a good option if they're asking about command line. But in this case, of course, I was only asking about format because that was really the only one there that does formatting. So that was indeed the correct answer. It's not filesys because I just made that one up. That's not a real thing. It doesn't exist. Sorry about that. Checkdisk will check your file system to make sure that there are no logical and potentially any physical problems with a spinning hard drive. Checkdisk is very useful to have for that, but it does not format or configure anything relating to the file system. It only checks that the file system's working properly. Xcopy is one that is a copy command that can copy files from one place to the other. Again, has nothing to do with configuring a file system. And SFC, the system file checker, checks to see if the programs that are in your operating system have not been modified by some nefarious third party, usually, or anyone else for that matter. So if there are any files that don't look quite right, that have changed since you installed your Windows, it will fix them for you and let you know that those things have happened. So in this case, the only possible answer, not even the best choice, it would be the only choice for this task, would indeed be A, format. So hopefully that was one you were able to walk through. Now, that was one we did last month. So now let's do some new questions. Let's go through some that would be different. However, some of you may be aware on the exam, you don't necessarily get all multiple choice questions. In fact, you're not going to get all multiple choice questions. The first handful of questions on your exam are what CompTIA calls performance-based questions. These are questions that are anything but multiple choice. These could be matching. They could be drag and drop. They could be fill in the blank. They could be putting things in a particular order from highest to lowest or fastest to slowest. You're never quite sure exactly what they're going to ask at the beginning. If you know your materials from the exam objectives, these are just another way to ask the questions. So what I like to do on the very first part of the study group is I like to give you the choice of a performance-based question. And I want you to be able to see these. So this is the performance-based question of the week, of the day, of the moment. I want you to list the command associated with the description. And this is effectively a fill in the blank. On your exam, you might get a matching here. It might be a drag and drop. They use different techniques. But I wanted to make this one a little bit harder by not giving you any hints. I wanted to give you one that was absolutely fill in the blank, where you really had to know off the top of your head what this command happened to be. So for those of you listening on the podcast, let's go through all of these. It is the command lines. I want to list the command line command associated with this description. The first description is display a list of currently running Windows processes. The second is list contents of a Linux directory. The next one is look up information from a DNS server. The fourth is remotely reboot a Windows computer. And the last one is change a Linux account password. Now, if you think you know any of these, you don't want to put any comments in the chat room. You don't want to give any answers in the chat room. You don't want to give any hints in the chat room. You instead want to put this through and put it into the Socrative front end by going to professormesser.com/QA. I have a fill in the blank for you right there. So the question is, display a list of currently running Windows processes, list contents of a Linux directory, look up information from a DNS server, remotely reboot a Windows computer, and change a Linux account password. Folks in the chat room are saying, this one's hard. This one is hard. But every single one of these are command lines that you are expected to know on the exam. They could potentially put you at a command prompt and tell you, you are out on a Linux computer. Please list the contents of a Linux directory. Well, you're at a command prompt. You don't have anywhere to go with that. You don't have anything you drag and drop. There's no reference materials. There's probably no man page available for you when you're on these questions. So what do? Well, you have to know it. And so this question really is trying to get you focused on knowing what those command lines happen to be. And if you're looking at this and wondering, I'm not recognizing any of these, this is a great opportunity to take all 5 of these answers and start working with these command lines. CompTIA fortunately lists out for you all of the command lines you need to know. So you can go directly to the command line list in the exam objectives and just start going through them. And of course, I do the same thing in my videos. I show you at the command line each one of these so that you can see what happens when you type these things in at the command line. I think you should do more than just watch me do it. There's something about doing it yourself. There's something about that muscle memory. It fires a synapse or stores it somewhere in your brain. I don't know what happened, but by doing that yourself and typing it on your own keyboard and watching the results on your own computer, there's something else that happens there. So I can only highly recommend that you go through each one of these at a minimum. Ideally, go through all of the command lines in the exam objectives, and you really go through each one of them and get familiar with them. Let's see what the answers are. Let's do the first one. You guys are so patient dealing with me. Thank you so much. Let's do the first one, which says display a list of currently running Windows processes. You ever done this one before? Kind of useful to be able to know the task list command. Now, if you're in a graphical front end, all you have to do is go to Task Manager. but you sometimes don't have a way to go to the task manager. Sometimes you have to go to the command line. You have no other choice, or you may find it's much faster to use task list than it is to go all the way back to the GUI and try to do things in the graphical front end. So that's another thing to consider. Let's do the next one. The command was one that would list the contents of a Linux directory. So obviously listing the contents of a directory are different whether you're on a Linux device or a Windows device. For Linux, it's ls, which is different than somebody who's doing something maybe on a Windows machine, which would be the dir command for directory list. Let's do another one. The next one is look up information from a DNS server. There's a couple of ways you can do this one. I put one answer down, but there are actually a number of different ways, and I'll accept many of them. I haven't looked through all of your answers yet because they're still coming in. But looking up information from a DNS server, very commonly done with NSLOOKUP. The NSLOOKUP command is one that will query your DNS server, and you can tell it, hey, DNS server, tell me the IP address for www.professormesser.com, or DNS server, tell me the name of the device associated with the IP address 8.8.8.8. So it's one way to do it. You're going directly to the DNS server to be able to do that. So you have to use NSLOOKUP. The other option that I would recommend that you could think of using would be the dig command. So dig is another one that you could consider doing. Dig is a similar and updated. NSLOOKUP is actually one that we're trying to phase out, and we're trying to get everybody using dig. But currently operating systems may only support one. Some operating systems support multiples of those. The next command line we're looking for is number 4, which is remotely reboot a Windows computer, which is actually the same command that you would use to locally reboot a Windows computer. But I think having that term remotely reboot gets people thinking in the mode of somebody doing troubleshooting and checking of machines and dialing into a box, and you're not there locally on the device. You can't just hit the power button. What do? Well, in that particular case, the shutdown command is a good choice. In fact, the shutdown command with a /r reboots it. The shutdown command will shut it down. But if you're not there remotely to turn it back on, that could be a problem. So you may want to use the /r command to actually reboot, which is what I was asking you to be able to do here. The /t command is a timer that says shut it down, reboot it when you're done, and then wait a number of minutes before that happens. The timer is a number of minutes, /t and then something. So shutdown /r at a minimum. I think it does ask for a /t if you don't put that in. So that may be a requirement for the shutdown command. It depends also on what shutdown command you're using. And the last is 5, change a Linux account password. This is one that in the exam objectives, they make a note that this one can be problematic because there are two commands that look very similar to each other. Changing a password is PASSWD. Looks like the word password. There's also a command PWD. And so you have to know the difference because PWD has nothing to do with your password and PASSWD has nothing to do with showing you the present working directory, which is PWD. That is a big difference between those two. So the PWD is more along the lines of using ls and cd. The PASSWD is a very specific utility for setting passwords for both your device or your account, and you can set, if you're the administrator, set passwords for other people's accounts as well. So you got options there. So we managed to get through our performance-based questions. So hopefully you're now familiar with some of these different commands and what you can run into. This is just a subset. This is only 5 of them. I think just the Linux commands was over 15 or something close to it, maybe just under 15, around 15. And then, of course, the Windows commands. You have plenty of those to go through as well. So make sure you're familiar with those. If you're at all wondering with these commands, make sure you're familiar and can use them on these operating systems because you might be asked about it on the exam. Let's jump to some multiple choice, shall we? Maybe make us feel better about ourselves and having to memorize all of these different command lines. This question asks, an attacker stole the hashed login credentials of your users and has now posted the plain text passwords of each account on Pastebin. For those of you not familiar with Pastebin, it's a place online you can paste information. You can put text and other people can read it. So the bad guys, they stole the plain text passwords of each account, they stole the hashed login credentials of your users and posted the plain text passwords of each account on Pastebin. What type of attack has most likely occurred? So that's a very, very specific scenario. So we're really wanting to know which one of these attacks really applies to this thing that just happened to this organization, hopefully not your organization. Is it A, 0 day? Is it B, brute force? Is it C, man in the middle? Is it D, spoofing? Or is it E, denial of service? So that's what we want to know with this one. We want to get an understanding. If you think you know the answer, you want to go to professormesser.com/QA and answer the question. You definitely don't want to put any hints in the chat room or put any messages in the chat room relating to it. Let's go through this question again, because this is a very specific scenario. An attacker stole the hashed login credentials of your users and has now posted the plain text passwords of each account on Pastebin. What type of attack has most likely occurred? Is it A, 0 day, a brute force, a man in the middle, spoofing, or denial of service? Which one of those? All valid attacks. All are things that could happen. They're real. I didn't make any of those up, but only one of them really applies to this particular scenario. So hopefully it's one where you're looking through this and trying to figure out what is it. What scenario would happen with this? And it's a very specific scenario, and it's a scenario, by the way, that happens all the time. Some of these massive database breaches where people have stolen the hashed login credentials, you'll end up seeing all of this account information with usernames and plain text passwords pasted on Pastebin. So we need to know what type of attack that is so that we can know how to stop it. So pretty important. Now, a number of you have answered, so I think we're going to flip over and start looking at this because we're going to need to really parse this one out a bit. We need to get a better understanding. How did we do with the attacker stealing the hash login credentials and posting them as plain text passwords on Pastebin? 41% of you said man in the middle. So we did not get a majority answer on here, but 41% is the highest number, man in the middle. 27% of you said brute force. 17% said spoofing. 13% said 0 day. And 3% said denial of service. So which one is it? Well, before we go further, we need to get better understanding of this scenario. The hashed login credentials, what in the world are we talking about when we say hashed login credentials? Whenever you log into your computer or to a website, you're putting in a username and you're putting in a password. But your password is never sent across the network. And your password is never stored anywhere on any system. In the best possible scenarios. In most places, they do not store passwords in plain text. If they are, they're not doing a very good thing. Your password is stored as a hash. So when you first define your password, my password is Ninja. The program that you're using will hash Ninja, will create a hash of that password, and it will store the hash. Hash is a one-way cryptographic function. There's no way to undo the hash and get the password back. We're not encrypting it. A hash is a completely different thing. It creates a very unique set of characters based on the original piece of information that we had provided. So for example, there's an account on this device called Jumper Bay, and in this particular file holding the passwords, this is the password as a hash. And you look at that and you wonder, I have no idea what the password is for Jumper Bay. And I literally think I use passwords on here like password 1, password 2, password 3, password 4. A very common group of things associated with this. So this is a scenario where those don't even look anything close to password 1, password 2, password 3. In fact, they're very different. So if somebody stole the hash, how did they manage to post plain text passwords on a public website? They don't have the plain text passwords, and a hash cannot be something that you can click a button and automatically get the password back. Well, how'd they manage to do that? Well, that's because people use passwords like Ninja and like password 1 and like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Because all they did was take all of those hashes and they took a dictionary of words and they ran a hash on the word ninja and they got a hash. Then they compared it to all the hashes they got and saw that, oh, there's 3 accounts here that have the hash that matches ninja. The password for those users is ninja. Let's do more. Let's check ninja 1. Let's check password. Let's check 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. They go through a dictionary of the most popular passwords that people can use, and they end up getting an enormous percentage of hits because people are not using weird terms and replacement characters or even making them very long. They're instead making the very common words with maybe a number at the end. So what they do offline is they go through this hash very, very, very quickly. They're able to calculate maybe not 100% of your users' passwords, but they can get 80% of them if your users are especially bad. And they're able to brute force that hash and calculate it, compare it to what was stored, and then determine what was there. Now, does it take a lot of CPU cycles to do that? Yes, it does. Do we have an enormous cloud of computers that we can use today to do this computing for us that is distributed across multiple data centers and hundreds and thousands of machines? Yes, we do. So the ability to make that happen and make it happen very quickly, it's getting a lot easier. It's getting a lot easier to do this. So that's what happened in this scenario is they grabbed the hash, they spent a day or two finding the most common low-hanging fruit passwords, and they performed B, a brute force attack. And that is the right answer. 27% of you that chose brute force did this absolutely the case. It was a brute force attack. It was, in this case, probably a dictionary attack with brute force. But a dictionary attack is a type of brute force attack. So folks in the chat room, because Sharp was saying, yeah, is that a dictionary attack? Most likely was. Doesn't have to be. They could have just started with password A, AA, AB, ABA, ABB, and just gone through the list until they hit this one. So it's very, very possible that they went through the list and they could have done every possible permutation of password. It may not have necessarily been a dictionary attack, but whether they used a dictionary or not, it absolutely was a brute force attack. I would use a dictionary because you're just looking for low-hanging fruit. You're looking for the ninjas and the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5s. That does happen. So that's where we got those from these pieces of these types of scenarios. So if we try to figure out these others, why was it not a 0-day attack? Well, we don't know that these particular attackers were able to take advantage of some unknown vulnerability. There was no mention of that in there. So that's why. That's where that came from. That hashed login credentials, that 0-day attack would not have necessarily had anything to do with that. Man in the middle, there's nobody in the middle here. The hackers broke in, they stole credentials, they went away, they brute forced the passwords, they came back. There was nobody as a middleman that was watching passwords go by. It's very rare for the bad guys to get a hold of all of your hash logins. That's not a common scenario. Perhaps sitting in the middle may be a little more common, but it's very difficult to see login credentials go across the network these days because commonly you're logging in and doing this as someone who is over an encrypted link, so you don't end up having access to the hash. Spoofing, there's no spoofing here. They're not pretending to be someone they aren't. And denial of service would be the whole system was taken down and you have no access to it. So really the only possible option here would be B, brute force. That is the correct answer. 27% of you got that one right. Let's see if we can bounce back from that 27% and see if we can make that happen. Make another one happen here. So the question here is the boot process of a Windows 10 computer takes 15 minutes to complete. This is not common for those of you who don't run a lot of Windows. So boot process of a Windows 10 computer can take 15 minutes to complete. Which of these tools would be the best way to identify the problematic startup application? So I've got tools here that can help you troubleshoot this problem because a 15-minute startup in Windows, that's not very common. But which of these could you use to be able to troubleshoot that issue? Is it Task Scheduler? Is it Local Security Policy? Is it Component Services? Is it Task Manager? Or is it Performance Monitor? Which one of these is it? The boot process of a Windows 10 computer takes 15 minutes to complete. Which of these tools would be the best way to identify the problematic startup application? Which one would it be? Would it be Task Scheduler, Local Security Policy, Component Services, Task Manager, or Performance Monitor? If you think you know the option, the answer, you can go to www.professormesser.com/QA. And you can answer this one. So this one, we're looking at this one. People in the chat room are trying to parse out the question. They're saying it asks which of these tools would be the best way to identify the problematic startup application. Perhaps there may be more than one of these that could be the correct answer. That's the thought process people are going through. And let's look through this list that I have here for all of these. If I look at this list, the best way to identify the problematic startup application, I'm looking through the list. It could possibly be two of them. I could almost go with you there. There could possibly be two, but if you start thinking it through, you start really basing out what the problem happens to be and what you would be doing to identify this problem and how you would fix it, there's probably only one that really fits best here. Really one. In fact, it's not even close. And this is usually the common scenario on the CompTIA exams, is whenever you get one of these where they ask the best answer, pick the thing you would do first, pick the thing that is the best, those types of questions. If you get those, the thing that is the best will be far and away the best one. It won't even be close. It's not a horse race. You're not even down to the wire kind of scenario. You should be able to look at it and go, oh, given the scenario they're giving me, there's no other choice. You would absolutely go with that particular answer. So that's the thing you should see on your exam as well if that happens to occur. Let's see how you did with this one. A lot of you you're trying to figure this one out. I can tell when the numbers don't go up very quickly as you're answering, that you're really thinking this one through. Let's see how you did. I have not looked yet. 43% of you said Task Manager, 33% said Performance Manager or Performance Monitor. So those are the two. In fact, in my mind, I was thinking you could probably go with either one of these, but only one is really going to be the best. And I'll explain why in a moment. We have a tie for a third. 10% of you said Task Scheduler. 11% of you said Component Services. It's close enough to a tie, right? And then only 2% said Local Security Policy. So booting up a slow computer is one of those things on the exam that is listed as a troubleshooting task that you have to know. So that is an important consideration on the exam. You have to know the slow boot issue. A slow boot obviously means the boot process is taking a long time, longer than normal. There may be lights constantly flashing. There may be lights that aren't flashing, but it's just taking forever to boot up. That's an issue. What usually is happening is some type of application running during the startup process is slowing everything down. And in some cases, maybe even stopping it until it decides to allow the boot process to continue. So what you want to do is find that problematic application. We want to figure out what is causing this to slow down during the startup process. Now, obviously, while it's starting up, I might not even be logged in. I don't have access to the desktop. There's very few things that I can really do. But if you're able to get to the desktop while this is occurring, there are a number of apps that may be able to help you. The one that probably would help you the most in this scenario is Task Manager. And here's the reason I say this, not necessarily because it's something available for you to watch the real-time activity of the performance of your system in real time and get information. But what you want to do is use the startup impact, or the way that you can, in fact, right here under the startup tab, you can now start defining what starts up on your computer. So you can change this. GlassWire, Microsoft OneDrive, and Windows Defender notification option are set to automatically start when the system starts up. It will even tell you the impact of that when they start up. But you can also access this and define these as being able to enable or disable. So let's say you're looking at this and going, well, I wonder if it's GlassWire causing me problem. Let's start at the top of the list. I'll disable GlassWire. Let's reboot our system and see what happens. If it starts up in a minute, you fix the problem. If it takes 10 minutes still, wasn't GlassWire, let's go to the next one. Microsoft OneDrive, disable that, reboot the system. So you're trial and error going through the list and being able to do that. So that's one pretty useful to have that functionality. Of course, you could even go the other direction. You could disable everything, restart your computer because your startup list may be 20 items. Disable everything, does your system boot properly? And then you'd at least know that it does nothing to do with your startup applications. We need to go to the next set of troubleshooting tasks to be able to do this. So that there's a few things you can do. This is a great first step because most of the time it's a problem with an app that's causing the problem. Sometimes, though, it's more detailed. I ran into a problem where it was a registry entry that the system could not write to because the registry permissions for that particular hive had been changed to read only. And it went through a process of trying to retry, and it wouldn't work. I went into the registry. I changed that to, instead of read only, I changed it to read write. System booted up instantly. So sometimes this is a good place to go, but sometimes it takes a little more work. Other people in the chat room were saying, yeah, it could be hardware too. Your hard drive could be failing. So you have to be able to step through these different troubleshooting scenarios to figure out what is the most obvious, what are the different statistics I'm seeing, what's the performance I'm getting, what are we seeing, and break it through there. Now, in this scenario, we didn't talk about problems after the system had booted. You don't, whenever you look at these questions, by the way, don't add more things to them. The questions are these tiny little worlds of information, and you can't make any assumptions about anything that happens later on. So that's why in this one, the question really focused on the startup process. The answer should then also only focus on the startup process. And the only possible option here is indeed the task manager. 46% of you, about half of you said, yep, it's task manager. That's the one that would cause this issue. And it would allow me to resolve this issue if it happens to be related to an application. It would not be Performance Monitor. Performance Monitor does give you a very nice summary of the performance of your system, but it's over a longer time frame, 5-second increments, 1-minute increments, and it's only going to show you that information once you start Performance Monitor, which means you have to be already logged in, you have to be at a desktop, you have to start Performance Monitor, and then you can gather statistics, and then you have to wait while those statistics are gathered. In this case, we're trying to troubleshoot a startup problem that happens before we're even able to get Performance Monitor going. So that would definitely not be the best way to identify the problematic startup application. Task Scheduler is a way that we can schedule things to run automatically at certain times of the day. At certain times of the day does not include the startup process, however. So Task Scheduler is not a very good way to even identify problematic startup problems. Component Services has nothing to do with startup process. Would use that to configure access to databases. It's a shim type front end that we can use to be able to view the components more at the software component level. Local security policy allows you to configure things like if your password length. Are you going to require a password? Are there certain timeouts? You have to change your password every certain number of days, and a lot of other security issues in the local security policy. Only 2% of you chose that one. Nobody thought it was that. The right answer here also, Task Manager. So some of you are saying, but wait, that startup process is in MS Config. Well, yes, if you're in Windows 7, it is in MS Config. In Windows 8 and Windows 10, they moved it. In fact, if you go to MS Config to the Startup tab, it says, nope, that's Task Manager now. Click here to start up Task Manager. That's where it is. So don't be fooled. You Windows 7 people, you were thinking MS Config, but actually Windows 8, Windows 10 people already know, yeah, it's not there anymore. Yeah, they moved it because it was where we expected it. We had to put it somewhere else in Windows 10. Don't worry, they'll move it again. We'll have to figure it out. The next Windows 10 update, who knows what they're going to do with that. Well, we know where it is right now. It's in Task Manager. That's the important part. There's so many different things in here we need to know. By the way, if you're watching this video for Continuing Education Unit credit and you would like to earn one webinar category CEU for watching this, what you have to do is follow these directions. You have to do it this way. So you have to be able to go to the top or bottom of the Professor Messer website. There is a Contact Us link at the top or the bottom of my site. Click on that. Brings up a nice little form that you can fill in with your name and your email address. Make sure those are correct because I send them back to you over the email. And if the email's not correct, well, then it doesn't get back to you. There's a little option in there to put a message. You can put anything in there you'd like. You might want to help me out by telling me that it's the February A+ study group. And I don't care if it's the 1001, 1002. I can figure it out. As long as February 2019 A+ study group helps. You can put any message in there you'd like because I'm the one reading them. But somewhere in there, put the words Task Manager. We'll do Task Manager. Put Task Manager in there. Maybe you don't want to write me a message. That's fine too. Just put Task Manager in as the message and send it. You're a no-nonsense kind of person. You don't have time to send a message to me. I get it. I'm fine with that. Put in Task Manager, click OK. It will show up in my inbox immediately in my mobile device. And if you sent me one for the 1001 study group, that's fine too. You've earned 2 of them this week. I'm fine with that. You've doubled up on your CEUs just by having this extra study group available. So already we've talked about security. We've talked about troubleshooting startup processes. We've talked about networking, except we didn't because my presentation was wrong. But obviously there's so much you need to know for the 1001 exam and the 1002 exam. And I'm making all of these videos so that you'll have access to all that information. I highly recommend you take some notes while you're watching these videos. Not all of you have the time or the ability to go through every single one of these videos and take all of these notes. And I get it. So what I did was take all of the content from these videos and I put them into a set of course notes, one for the 1001 exam and one for the 1002 exam. They don't replace your book. They don't replace the videos. They're designed to be a summary of all of the content that you'll find in my video series, all in one place. I've taken all of the text, all of the graphics. I've taken all of the interesting tables that I've put together, and I put them all in one place. I'll show you what it looks like. There it is. So it's a PDF. You can download it immediately and have access. Here's operating systems overview, an overview of Windows 7, an overview of Windows 8, overview of Windows 10. I've got your summary of the minimums required to be able to use those operating systems, the upgrade paths. It's all in here. These are very big. This is the 1002 course notes that are available, but there's tons of information that's in there that you're able to pull from. I put them all in there to have them available. One of the things that you will find in these course notes is that they're getting bigger and bigger because you've told me I want everything. Put everything that you write in the videos, put in these course notes, so I did. So the 1002 course notes are 50 pages long. Here they are. Here's also a physical version. Some of you like the digital version because you can put it in all your devices. It's a PDF file. But some people like to have a book version of it. So this is exactly the same content. It's just in a book. It's just in this printed form. And if you get the book version, because I have to ship it to you, there's extra costs for printing it, you also get the PDF version for free. So that's a little bonus for you if you get the printed version that you can take with you. It's color inside. It's high quality paper. I wouldn't have created anything that wasn't. So this is something available to you as well. There's also one for the 1001 course as well. So one for the Core 1, one for the Core 2. Just depends on what exam you want, or you can get them both at the same time. I'll just ship both of those to you. Or you can order the digital versions, either way you'd like. They're available $20 each. You can get more information about those at professormesser.link/1000notes. Or from my website. There's links on my website also that you'll find as well. So by the way, for those of you that have purchased those, because people ask me all the time, do you have a Patreon? Do you have a way that we can donate? I don't take donations. I don't do a Patreon. I want to give you something back for your money. This is a great way to support the site. Every dollar of this goes back to keeping things running. And it's another way that we're able to produce things like this study group for you. So thank you for your support for this. Find out more about this, professormesser.link/1000notes. Let's get more questions in. Got one here. Let's talk. This one is about London. This is a person in London would like to remove all of their personal information from a server in New York. Okay. Which of these regulations would best apply to this request? Oh, a regulation question, which we do tend to see when we're working in any type of environment. It's not all technical, is it? We still have to deal with the rules and the regulations. Is the possible answer GDPR? Is the possible answer FOSS? Is the possible answer a PCI DSS? Is the possible answer a EULA? Or is the possible answer a HIPAA? Those are all real, actual things, but only one of them really applies to this scenario. Possible answers are GDPR, FOSS, PCI DSS, EULA, and HIPAA. So, yes, this is a new one. People in the chat room immediately recognize, ooh, there's new content on the 1002. This is a new content question on the 1002. So the question again is that a person in London would like to remove all of their personal information from a server in New York. Which of these regulations would best apply to this request? Boy, these are ones, when you start getting into the details of the 1002 exam, they are starting to add a few more things. That this is not an operating system. This is not a piece of memory. This is not something you have to know. So those are the things you have to know. Is this thing about regulations? They do go through some of this. They are in the exam objectives. Make sure you get those CompTIA exam objectives. That's what you need to Google. Or you can go to professormesser.com/objectives. This is going to be a tough one to Google. I guess you would have to reverse Google it, but you would have to go through every single one of these. So stop Googling. We're going to pretend that when we work through this, that this is something that we're in the actual exam room working through this. So make sure you go through this and figure out all the details of making that happen. I think that would be a good one to go through. So hopefully this would be one you may have run into. I have certainly run into this. And in the chat room, people are making some very good points, and we'll talk about this in just a moment, how this works. Let's see how we did. This person in London would like to remove all their personal information from a server in New York. Which of these regulations would best apply to this request? What would it be? Let's see how you answered. Oh, we still didn't get a majority on this one, but our largest number, 40%, said GDPR. 26% of you, just over a quarter, said EULA. 17% said HIPAA. 11% said FOSS. And 6% said PCI DSS. So in this particular case, the real key to this question was about location and what they wanted. In this case, someone in London wanted to get rid of personal information. And actually, the destination of where they wanted to get rid of it isn't necessarily the most important part, but it is, I think, the most interesting part. And the way that this works is with the General Data Protection Regulation, a regulation created in the European Union. This is a relatively new regulation. It's been coming for a while, but the actual regulation went into effect this past year. And it provides for what they're calling data protection and privacy for individuals that live in the EU. So what type of thing is data protection? It would be your name, your address, your photo, your email address, bank details, posts on social networking websites, posts in forums, accounts that you might have on the website, your medical information, your computer's IP address, anything that's there. That is definitely personal information. and having that there. So that's one where whenever you start trying to figure out where to go with this when it deals with privacy, that is the regulation that everybody who runs a website knows right now. This is about not only where your data is, but where your data goes. The idea is giving users more control of their personal data. Pretty important. Sometimes you'll hear this referred to as a right to be forgotten, as if such a thing is possible on the internet. But of course, this was done by people who are not technical people. They don't know. They don't understand that there's ways that these things are archived. It's digital. But they're doing their best, given their lack of knowledge in technology. You'll notice a lot of privacy policies on websites around the world now address how someone is able to have their information removed from a website. So this is all regarding the GDPR. Now, to that point, if we go back to the answers, 43% of you did choose the GDPR. The free and open source software, 10% of you only chose that. That's referring to open source software. So that's not one that is really related to removing personal information. PCI DSS is referring to the regulations around how credit card information is protected. That's not necessarily personal information. Your personal information is much more than just credit cards. And your personal information is much more than HIPAA, which is your health information. Personal information is everything about you, not just credit card, not just health. And in fact, this question did ask which one would best apply. This is a good question where 3 of these could possibly be answers, but only one best applied to this particular request. Would not be EULA, an end-user licensing agreement, also doesn't have anything with what rights an individual has to remove their data, generally speaking. Now, the question came up in the chat room, but wait, this place is in the question, the place is in London, the person's in London, their information is in New York. Does anyone in the United States, are they required to follow this European Union regulation? And the answer is maybe, interestingly enough. There is international law that could possibly compel a company to pay fines to the European Union if they do not comply with these particular regulations. Has that particular international law been, we know it's codified, but has it really been used? Has somebody really taken advantage of those particular laws and used them to obtain those fines? No, not yet. So generally speaking, here in the U.S., we don't take kindly to folks in London telling us what to do, as our history seems to express. However, we want to be good corporate citizens, and for the most part, American and other countries around the world, people around the world are tending to follow these particular regulations just to see how things go. And in fact, on my site, I updated my privacy policy. I say if you want to remove your information, you're welcome to. Just send me a note and I can remove it. Now, part of the problem is some people think this means that I am required to remove everything ever about you ever. But of course, here in the United States, if you were to purchase one of my course notes, there is tax information that I have to follow up with. I have to be able to audit all of these things later on for 7 years. So I can't just remove all of your purchase information from my site as if it never happened, because that would be fraud. That would not be good for me to do that. But I don't keep your credit card information anyway. I keep your name, I keep your email address at the least. I keep those things, and that's not a lot of information. Pretty much everybody has your name and your email address at this point. So hopefully that's not going to be a big problem for me on my site. Other sites is a little more difficult, especially if you do keep private information there. This is one of those things we're going to keep watching to see how it turns out. We just aren't quite sure yet. I know we're a little over time, but I want to do one more because I've just been talking a lot today. So we're going to do one more question and get through these, and then we'll open up the phone lines. I'll take questions from the chat room in just a moment. Let's do a Windows question. And the question asks, which of these paths allow for an in-place upgrade? Which of these paths allow for an in-place upgrade? So I've given you 5 different upgrade options. Only one of these allows for an in-place upgrade. So this is not a multiple answer question. Only one is the right answer. And you'll notice this because you can only answer for one answer in Socrative. So, and people are already asking, what do you mean by this? If you don't know what that means, then you are in trouble. So let's look at the first one. The first one is Windows 7 Starter to Windows 10 Enterprise. Can I do an in-place upgrade? Windows 8.1 Professional to Windows 10 Home. How about Windows 7 Home Premium to Windows 10 Pro? How about Windows 8.1 Enterprise to Windows 10 Pro? And the last one is Windows 7 Ultimate to Windows 10 Enterprise. Those are your 5 in-place upgrades. So for those of you listening in on the podcast, let me go through them one more time. The first one, starting at the top, Windows 7 Starter to Windows 10 Enterprise. Windows 8 Professional to Windows 10 Home. Windows 7 Home Premium to Windows 10 Pro. Windows 8.1 Enterprise to Windows 10 Pro. And Windows 7 Ultimate to Windows 10 Enterprise. Only one of those paths is going to allow an in-place upgrade. Which one is it? Let's see how well we remember our upgrade paths. And then we'll talk about what in the world the differences are between in-place and anything else for those and being able to make that happen. I wonder if that's there. We'll have to see if that is indeed one of those that we deal with, work through. Let's see how we did with this one. A number of you are putting those in. Yes, there's so many different versions of this. Chat room's trying to parse it out right now and the different ones. And upgrade paths are a pain. Us in the industry think that upgrade paths are a pain. So you're absolutely right when looking at these and watching everything sort of fading out. They're all kind of blending together. Let's see how we did, though. Let's see the questions. 40% of you said Windows 8.1 Enterprise to Windows 10 Pro. We have kind of a tie for second between Windows 8.1 Professional to Windows 10 Home and Windows 7 Home Premium to Windows 10 Pro. 11% said Windows 7 Ultimate to Windows 10 Enterprise, and only 3% said Windows 7 Starter to Windows 10 Enterprise. So the tip I'm going to give you immediately for a question like this is in Windows, you can generally upgrade if you're upgrading to the same level of Windows, same edition of Windows, or higher. You cannot do an in-place upgrade if you're going from one edition of Windows to a lower edition of Windows. So in-place upgrade is referring to you keeping all of your applications, your settings, your personal files, all that. It leaves everything in place and simply upgrades the operating system. That is an in-place upgrade. Of course, you did a backup before this, though, right? Okay, good. I'm warning you. A complete clean install, a starting from the beginning and install from scratch is one that you would have to do if there was no upgrade path like this available. Normally, that involves you copying off all of someone's personal files, being able to upgrade the operating system and copying it back. There are other options available as well, but especially now with Windows 8 and Windows 10, you can do a lot of this in the cloud, but it still involves you making sure everything's in the cloud, upgrading a system, and then retrieving everything from the cloud. Not as easy as it actually sounds. So which one would it be? The actual answer in this one, I'm going to give you the answer first, and then we're going to look through this. In this case, it would not be the 43% of you that said Windows 8.1 Enterprise to Windows 10 Pro, because Enterprise is a higher level edition of Windows than Pro is. So you can't go backwards. So that would not be an in-place upgrade. In fact, we have a similar scenario, 8.1 Professional to Windows 10 Home. You're going from Professional to Home. Can't do that either. How about, so that leaves us with 3 options here. The Windows 7 Starter to Windows 10 Enterprise. We've got Windows 7 Home Premium to Windows 10 Pro, and we've got Windows 7 Ultimate to Windows 10 Enterprise. And in those scenarios, we may want to look at the upgrade paths. Interestingly enough, the Windows 7 Starter can upgrade to Windows 10 Home and Windows 10 Pro, but it cannot upgrade to the Enterprise version of Windows. Starter, Home Basic, and Home Premium are designed as home systems. There's no way to get it to an Enterprise version of Windows, nor would you ever do that. So Microsoft did not create a path for that because that should never happen. The highest you can go with those three is to Windows 10 Pro. So you can see with the Windows 7 Starter, Home Basic, and Home Premium, I can do an in-place upgrade for all of those, which means that our option, we didn't see that, there it is, that our option, there's the Windows 7 Starter going from upgrade. Notice the Windows 10 Enterprise can't, you have to do an install. No in-place upgrade for that one. So you've got those. So it can't be the first option, which is Windows 7 Starter to Windows 10 Enterprise. Now, the other option was Windows 7 Ultimate to Windows 10 Enterprise. It's almost the same scenario. The Ultimate version of Windows was designed for the consumer market. And although functionally the Ultimate version and the Enterprise version are very similar, they're still not the same. But because the Ultimate version was designed for the consumer market, it will not upgrade to Enterprise. So in this particular scenario, Windows 7 Ultimate will not upgrade to Windows 10 Enterprise. That means the only option we have available here is Windows 7 Home Premium to Windows 10 Pro. In fact, Windows 7 Home Premium will upgrade to Windows 10 Home, Windows 10 Pro, but will not upgrade to Windows 10 Enterprise. That's the sweet spot we were looking for, that Windows 7 Home Premium to Windows 10 Pro. So that was a hard one. That was a little challenging for this one. And like they said in the chat room, always pick C. Always pick C. I don't know why. Is that true, though? Statistically, there has to be some study done on exams that are multiple choice and which one you should pick out of 4 or 5 options. Somebody will find this for me. I'm almost certain. So if you're one of the people that picked C, the 22% of you that picked C, that's the one we were looking for. Well, that's a pretty good summary of our 220-1002 study group for these. Everything you saw in the study group came directly from the CompTIA exam objectives. You can find these at professormesser.com/objectives. You can, of course, go through Google and type in CompTIA exam objectives. That would be a good way to do it as well. Let's fix a few things here. This is also a great checklist. If you're trying to decide, am I ready to take this exam? Pull up the exam objectives and start checking off things and figuring out the details. It's a great way to know which things you might need a little bit more help on. And so when people ask me, am I ready to take the exam? I don't know. Are you? Go through the exam objectives and you'll be able to figure that out. You'll be able to tell me. We do one of these A+ study groups twice a month now. I will do another pair of these A+ study groups on March the 5th for the 1001 and March the 7th for the 1002 so that you can come back and we'll do some more of these. It'll be great. If this is way past March or you're just wanting to know when is the next event, because I do a Network Plus study group next week and a Security Plus study group the week after, you can always go to professormesser.com/calendar and I'll tell you exactly when the next group is going to be. So you'll know when those are. People in the chat room like, nothing before, nothing in February? Nope, got one next week. Got one the week after. They're just not A+. There's Network Plus and Security Plus. And being able to do that makes sense. I've got a whole hour or so. We'll just open up the phone lines. Maybe it'll be 5 minutes or so. But after this, I'll open up the phone lines. I'll take questions from the chat room. We can talk about those other details. But don't forget about the Daily A+ question on Twitter. Don't forget about subscribing on YouTube and hitting the bell if you'd like to know when those newest A+ videos are uploaded. I was editing some this morning, so we know that something's happening there. Don't forget about my course notes. That link is wrong. It's professormesser.com/link. It's probably not going to look right. No, there it goes. /1000 notes. It's my link site. That does not make it as easy as I thought it would be. And check the calendar. We'll tell you when the next one's going to be, when we'll be able to do another one of these. Thank you for being here. I say that at the beginning, and I mean it every time. We're not able to do these study groups without you being here. It makes it so much more fun, so much better to talk in the chat room, answer questions in the chat room as we go, and hopefully we were able to learn something today that's going to help you with your exam. Stick around for the next hour. I'm opening up the phone lines. It's open phone lines. You don't have to talk about A+. We could talk about anything you'd like, practically, almost anything you would like. Be glad to do it. Stick around. Otherwise, we'll wait and see you next month on the next A+ study group. Thanks, everybody. Well, we've got plenty to go through that. I've got to figure out what's going on with the audio, don't I? How many times did it make the little chirping thing? Somebody in the chat room was talking about a chirp that came through, a loud chirp. So I'm going to work on that. I was 3 times, twice 3 times? Come on. Was it random, or did it all happen like in a small bunch? Did it happen like throughout the time? Don't know what that is. That's annoying. I will figure that out. Just random, huh? Okay, I'll figure out the details. It may continue to do that. I think I know kind of where it's coming from. I'm not completely sure yet. So we'll see. I know it's very random. It happens and then it stops. It's weird. But I got some of that. Sound isn't clipping. That's not clipping when that happens. It's something else that's happening in the feed. It's actually in the SDI feed that's going to my streaming server because it doesn't happen on my local systems. I'm recording locally as well. So that's not something that happens. But we're not getting clipping. We're not getting popping. That's a completely different weird thing that is happening that's outside the scope of my audio system. So that's the way it works. Let's get the phone lines open, though, real quick. Hold on a moment. Whether you want to call in or not, I'll get the phone lines open at least. And we'll just have them there if somebody wants to use them. I will take questions from the chat room as well. So make sure you go to the chat room at professormesser.com/live, and I will be glad to take those questions. Let me bring up my Skype. Let me bring this down and go through this. Yes, for those asking, I do use a TriCaster for this for now. Planning to change that shortly. Got a lot of changes going on relating to this. So we never know what's going to go on with me. So let's see if I can log into...
Enter your 6-digit PIN number.
I don't know what that is. How can I not know what that is right now? I think I know what it is. And it says...
Welcome.
See, it works. It's alive, which means I can tell you that if you would like to call in and talk to me, that's what phones do. That I don't have a texting set up. You have to go to the chat room for texting. But if you'd like to call in, you're more than welcome to. Anywhere in the continental United States, it is a toll-free number at 855-785-RJ45. That's 855-785-7545 east of the Rockies. 855-785-7545. If you're outside the United States, you can use Skype absolutely free, no Skype minutes required. Just put a +1 at the beginning and do a +1 855-785-7545, and it would call in as well. You can do either one of those. I don't want you to post any questions from a third party in the chat room, but if you have a broad question that is about something you saw, you're more than welcome to ask that as well. So you got options there to be able to do those things. Never know what's going on with that. In the chat room, there are people calling in, so we'll go to the calls in just a moment. But the question in the chat room, not to rush you or anything, but how long do you think it will take for all 1001 and 1002 materials to be uploaded to YouTube? I don't know. Will it take 6 months? No. I don't know how long it will take, though. I don't have a formal production schedule. Here's my philosophy on creating these videos. There are no people here that are looking over me, that are rushing me to get these things done. I have not created an arbitrary deadline that I have to have these done by a certain day, because quite honestly, the process of building out the videos and editing them varies widely on how well a recording session went, on how things are going in the rest of my life and how much time I have available to do that, whether I have a live study group that week, whether my parents need something on the weekend. This past weekend, I installed a satellite dish for my parents because it's one of those things. I was able to do it and they needed the help. So I was happy to do that. But when I go do those things, I can't sit here and shoot video. So I don't set any deadlines for when these things will be done. What I can tell you is that I work as fast as I can to get these things out. Number one, you need them. Number two, this whole process of me having a company and making money and being able to keep the lights on doesn't happen unless I get videos out. So that's another part of it, is that I want these not only for you to use, but it only helps me if I get these videos out for you to use. So there's a good win-win there if I can get in the studio and pump out some videos. But I don't want to rush myself. I don't want to set any arbitrary deadlines because I feel that will limit how much quality I'm able to do in a video. There's been some videos that I've shot and I've realized just don't like that section right there. I think that should have more of an explanation in it. I think we need to add a couple more slides. Let me reshoot that part and shove it into the edit. So I got to reshoot, which means I got to come back into the studio, set up the lights, get everything going, paint the face, sit down, put things up, get all the routing of the video right, click the record button and get those things recorded. That takes some time. It's not an impossible thing, but it takes time. And I feel that if I'm pushed on dates, I would look at the video and go, it's good enough. Get it out there. And I don't feel like that's the kind of product I want to create. I want to create the best possible training course of anything, not just free, but commercial. And that's an important thing that I want to focus on. So I don't have a date, and I can't give you a date because I don't make any dates for this. I get them out as quickly as I can. So be patient with me. I don't take a whole lot of time. Yesterday, I put 4 videos out. So there were 4 brand new videos posted on YouTube yesterday. So they're happening. They are coming. We're working on it. I have about 10 that are in the editing section right now. I started editing another one this morning. So we're getting them done. We're pumping them out, but it does take time. These courses have been in production for literally months. So we're now at the final phase and you're finally getting to use it. And I realize the exams are out, but I want to get it to you as fast as you want to get it. So I will get them out. This is not something that we're just sitting around and thinking, are we going to finish that? What do you think? Should we? No, we definitely are. Everything has already been written. As I showed you with the course notes, the courses are done. All of this content's ready to go. The presentations are sitting here on my SSD, just waiting for me to sit in front of a camera. So I can at least get you the course notes now. And then you'll start to see videos that show up and go, hey, these videos are exactly what's in the course notes. Yeah, that's exactly right. That's the process I go through. So that's the process I think about when creating these. And that's why I can't give you a date. And I'd love to give you a date, but I can't give you one. I just can beg for your patience and hope that that's enough for the moment. And they will be out soon. They will be absolutely there for all of those pieces. Let's go to the phones, and then I've got some other questions in the chat room that have come up. But in the phones, the 703 area code. Hello, caller. What's your name? Where are you calling from? Caller. Are you there?
Hello?
Hey, are you there, caller? What's your name? Where are you calling from?
Hey, Professor. My name is Yusuf, and I'm calling from Virginia.
Oh, welcome, Yusuf. What can we do for you?
I have a question that is off the A+, if you don't mind.
Oh, sure.
So I watched your last video about renewing your certs, and I was wondering, because I looked up on CompTIA's website, and it seems like their security analyst certs and the PenTest cert are both intermediate. So I was wondering which one can renew the other in that case.
This is one where the whole renewal process is a little bit of a challenge on the CompTIA site. You almost have to become a CompTIA renewal expert for the CompTIA exams, because there's so many different options and so many different layers and so many things that you have to know how to do to be able to renew these things. On the CompTIA website, there's an entire section on continuing education. It's a big one too. And they've kind of broken it up by different paths that you could choose. You can renew with a single activity. You can renew with multiple activities. and they kind of break them up into those two categories. If you were to take a higher level exam to earn your certification, that would certainly be one where you are renewing with a single activity. And they give you different options there. One is the Cert Master CE, which is the video that I made. I posted that one last week, which is how to renew your A+, Network Plus, or Security Plus exam in just a few hours. So that's on my YouTube site. It's on my website as well. The one that you were just asking about was the higher level CompTIA certifications. You can take a higher level cert from CompTIA to renew your lower level certs, and they give you on their website a list of what is higher level and what is lower level. And you were asking specifically, I think, about CISA and PenTest, or were we also referring to CASP?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
So if
I was referring to, yes, the security analyst and the PenTest Plus.
Okay, if you go to their website, they give you this little stacked pyramid of all of the different exams and what renews what. Mm-hmm. So if you click on the layer that has the CompTIA CISA Plus and CompTIA PenTest, you don't even realize unless you read that you can click on these things. It tells you that if you take the CISA Plus, it renews PenTest, Security Plus, Network Plus, and A+. If you take PenTest Plus, it renews CISA Plus, Security Plus, Network Plus, and A+. So those are sort of two comparable exams that will renew each other, along with everything else underneath.
Mm-hmm. Makes sense.
This is by the way, those of you that are trying to figure out the renewal process, I highly recommend you go out to the CompTIA website, really start to dig into the different ways to do it, because some people will spend a lot of time collecting CEUs when they could have just spent almost the same money and in 4 to 6 hours had their 3-year renewal done without having to do anything else. Or some of you may find, well, I'm taking a higher level exam anyway, and suddenly you realize, wow, this is going to renew everything else I have. So make sure you become aware of those. You may be able to renew and you had no idea. I think that
makes sense.
Absolutely.
Thank you,
Yusuf, we appreciate your call. Thank you for watching as well.
Thank you.
Absolutely. That's whenever I start trying to figure out renewals. Just doing that video last week made me realize just how complex the renewal process can be. And there were some interesting questions we got in the YouTube comments for that I had to go back and look up myself just to be sure I wasn't saying the wrong thing. So that may be something you want to think about too. The 215 area code. Hello, caller. Thank you for calling. What's your name? Where are you calling from?
Hi, I'm Mamadou, and I'm calling from Pennsylvania.
Thanks for calling. What can we answer for you today?
Oh, actually, I'm really an amateur on IT, so I have no idea what's going on. I mean, I just know a little bit about computer and stuff, but I'm really interesting to have to take the CompTIA exam. So I'm wondering if you can help me with some books that I can start with as a starter beginner.
You've hit kind of
ready to start the test.
You've hit a challenging time for the CompTIA A+ exam, because if you're just starting into IT, A+ is the exam that most people are starting with. It's a good place to start because you learn about hardware, you learn about operating systems, there's a little bit of networking, there's a little bit of security, but it's a good overall starting point to learn the basics of information technology. One of the challenges, though, right now is that, as I mentioned earlier in the first hour, that the A+ exam is in a transition period from one set of exams to the newest. And if somebody's starting off fresh, you probably are going to want to start with the latest versions of the exams. That would be the 220-1001 and the 220-1002. So that's the versions that will be here for the next 3 years. Those will be the tests that everyone will take to earn their A+ certification. But the problem with this is that these exams have been out for about 3 weeks. These are brand new exams on the market. And for those of you that have gone out to Amazon, gone to local bookstores, and you're looking for a book that is for the 1001 and the 1002, you haven't been able to find anything. There's nothing out there. And that's because the exam is so new And the process of building out video courses and especially producing the books from the very large publishers, it is a slow and arduous process to get a book from the beginning all the way through the process. And so what people have seen is that publishers have said, oh, this book will be available in April. This book will be available in May. So right now we're looking at seeing books available maybe next month. There is one book I know is available directly from CompTIA. So interestingly enough, CompTIA has their book that you can purchase now, and they are practically the only textbook publisher out there right now that has an option for the 221001 and the 221002. Other books will come along quickly, though. Next month at this time, we'll probably start to see more hitting the market. I would recommend, if you're planning to get it started, maybe wait until next month, see what books are available. There's going to be some good ones out by then. And then I might be able to recommend one of those books to get things started with.
Okay. Thank you so much, because my thing is I have no idea what's about, CompTIA and, computer and, software. So I was really wondering, where do I have to dig first, to have a little knowledge, about everything that I'm trying to get to on the degree, the certification.
That's where I would recommend you start, is with the books that are specifically written for the 221001 and the 221002. You're going to go to the bookstore and other places now, and maybe even your local library. You might see books for the 900 series exam, the 800 series exam, the 700 series exam. That's going back 10 years or more. You don't want to deal with those. You want to get the latest content, the latest materials. So just check the numbers that are on those books, and you'll be fine.
Okay, no problem. Thank you so much, Professor.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate the call.
We really appreciate all the help and the stuff, the videos that you're putting out there.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Have a great one.
Absolutely. You too.
All right. Bye-bye.
And I appreciate that as well. We've got more calls coming in. There was a question earlier, very quickly before we go there. I kind of dealt with some of these things. The question was, do you think the 1000 series exam update changed the purpose of the A+ exam? Before, it seemed to be mostly for IT technicians. Now it seems to cater for a junior system administrator skill set. I don't think anything changed with the exam. It's almost the same exam. When I mentioned earlier, 20%, 22, 23% of the content was different. But in reality, they really just got rid of single interfaces you don't see anymore. This Centronics interface isn't on the exam anymore, but USB 3 and USB-C interfaces are on the exam. So there's a good example where they swapped something out that was very similar in scope, but they had to change it because the technology changed. PCI, for example. Well, there is some PCI on the exam. I take that back. But there are certain other things where they got rid of an older technology like Windows Vista and put Windows 10 in its place. So was there a change? Yes. Did it change the scope of the exam? No, I don't see any change at all to scope. It seems exactly what it was in all of those. So I think that's where you should focus too. If you're going to focus on exam, don't worry what the exam was written for, because I think it kind of applies to both help desk, break fix, even junior system administrator. I think it fits all of those. It's a very broad exam. It doesn't go super, super deep. Some places it does go deeper than others, but it's very, very broad. You're covering hardware and security and networking and mobile devices and cloud, and it goes all over the place. So yeah, it does apply to many different ones. Absolutely. Back to the phones. 559, what's your name? Where are you calling from? You heard the beep?
Hello.
Hello. Thanks for calling. What's your name? Where are you calling from?
I am Brian from Algeria.
Oh, thank you. Welcome to the call. What can we do for you today?
Just, Professor, I say thank you for all the video you make, and that's it.
I'll take it, sir. Thank you for watching.
We love you here from Algeria.
I appreciate that, sir. That's worth the call to me right there. I thank you for calling.
Thank you, Professor. Thank you.
Take care. I'm fine with that. That's a perfect call. Those calls make my day. They're you don't realize how motivating it is to have someone call and go, yeah, just calling to say those were really good. Now, don't everybody do that. That makes for a horrible show. You can send an email and it works just as fine. But, I'm sitting here in a dark room all day wondering, it's not a dark room. I open up the windows and there's light in here. This is not as horrible looking as it actually is. It's actually quite nice in here to be able to work because they make it that way. But it is a challenge sometimes to know, is this really, at the end of the day, you go in and you have dinner and wondering, are we making progress? And we are. People are watching them. They are learning something. Our main mission, I hate mission statements, so we don't have one that's official mission statement. But if I had to make one, it's I want people to get a job or get a better job. IT and information technology in general has a global scope. And I feel that it's one of the few segments of business, of industry. It's not transportation, it's not healthcare. It's really its own kind of focus that gives anybody the ability to excel and to make very good money and be very comfortable. It's a 6-figure industry. If you work hard enough and you position yourself to move up and do the things you love to do, you can easily make 6 figures in IT and more. And the stories I have about Silicon Valley and working in those companies and being able to propel yourself forward, the opportunities are out there. And I think that does help me and maintain those things as well. So people are asking, what's the circuit board behind me? It is a motherboard. I want to say it's an NLX motherboard. I don't think it's my Xbox motherboard. I do have an Xbox motherboard around here somewhere. I don't think that's the one. I think that is an old Pentium 2 NLX motherboard. NLX is the style, sort of like the ATX motherboard. NLX was another style. This goes back to the 600 series exam. And it is one that Intel made almost exclusively. So it's an Intel-made motherboard that is an NLX style. It was designed so you could unscrew the case with thumb screws, slide out the motherboard without having to do anything else. Has a big circuit. Can you even see it? I'll have to pull it out one of these days and look at it. Got a big circuit connector on the back that unplugs from the power. And then you slide the motherboard back in, snaps in, and it's connected to power again. So it's quite a monstrosity. And it made for something good to put in the background. Some people sometimes ask, is that a green screen back here? No, that's real. I don't have anything to throw. That's a real thing. It moves around from time to time. I dust, I clean things up. So that's what that is. That's where that came from there. What jobs give 6 figures in IT? Lots of them, especially when you get into more of an engineering type role where you are designing the network, you're designing the implementation, sales engineering, pre-sales engineering, where you're showing people products, you're putting them into a lab, you're showing people and evaluating technology. Is this something you can use? How many of these would you like? You make a good chunk of change. I did that for over 20 years. And it's a nice way to go. Plus, there are other advantages to doing those things too. Back to the phones real quick. We can talk more. I've got to write a book about some of those things someday, because I literally traveled the world from Australia to Germany to London to Canada. And did I ever design networks? Oh, all the time. Yeah, my last position, I worked 5 years at Palo Alto Networks designing security for some of the biggest companies in the world. So we would design and implement, at the time, truly next generation firewalls, technology that the world had never seen before. We were able to put into people's networks and put it in, not only design the functionality, but also how do you put it into a Cisco dual core router or a redundant switched backplane type of network? How do you get into a cloud type scenario? Those were the designs we were creating because every customer had a different scenario. So we would talk about advantage, and then we do a lot of whiteboarding. Show me how your network looks. And then, we could do this. We could put it at layer 3. We could put it in layer 2. We could put it in layer 1. There's advantages and disadvantages with both. How do we do that so they're redundant? What type of redundancy do you need? What speed of redundancy do you need? Did I work a lot with Cisco? Well, a lot of my customers had Cisco equipment. So I did work a lot with interacting or working alongside Cisco equipment, but not directly touching the Cisco equipment. I took out a lot of Cisco firewalls. That was easy. That was the best work I did with Cisco, was removing a lot of their firewalls and putting in something that actually protected the network. Let's go to the 401 area code. Did you like that little dig I stuck there at the end? That was not meant to be quite that harsh. I haven't done this in so long. Why am I so protective? But the 401 area code, caller, what's your name? Please pull me out of this.
Yeah. Hey, my name's Eric. I'm calling from North Dakota.
Welcome, Eric. What can we do for you?
Yeah, I know that you're talking about like a new exam. I take my 902 on Wednesday, and I had a question about how the simulations go.
It's open phone line, so fire away.
Cool. Okay, so I guess my concern is in, say, command prompts, doing like xcopy, do you have to know all those switches because there seem to be just tons, or can you use like the help command? Like, do they give you that option in the simulation?
They don't. From what I have read, the people that have violated their candidate agreement have said that the help capability is not there in a way that makes it any useful to them. But there have also been reports, and a lot of us think about these performance-based questions as being that them dropping you to a command prompt and now you have to do something. As it turns out, the vast majority of questions that you could possibly get for these performance-based questions happen to be anything but a command prompt that is asking you to do something. I think it will be more straightforward than that. In fact, many people said, as far as some people call these simulation questions, very few of them are actually simulations where it looks and feels like you're working on a computer and you have to perform a function. But it does help if you are familiar with how to use the Windows interface. Some of these simulation questions happen in the GUI. So you have to know where to click, where to go, how do I get to the control panel, how do I get to the administrative tools, how do I start up Computer Manager, how do I find the Task Manager? Those are things that they sometimes will ask as well. And usually there are multiple paths to get there, and the simulation software allows you to do that. But the majority of questions that I've seen people talk about are questions that are matching. There's very few fill in the blank, if any. I don't think there are any fill in the blank typical questions, although it could be argued that plopping you at a command prompt and having you type something in is sort of a fill in the blank, really. A lot of them are questions that are giving you a scenario and you have to put things in the right place. I've got a performance-based question in my pop quiz collection that gives you a picture of a motherboard and you have to drag and drop the different components onto the motherboard. I realize that's not a 902 question, but that's the type of thing they tend to ask. For the 902, it tends to be obviously more operating system focused, more security focused than those, but it's a very similar scenario. So don't be too wrapped around the axle about knowing every single switch for every single command. I think the ones that I gave you in my videos are sort of the bare minimums you should know. You know, if you're using the shutdown command, you should know how to reboot the system as well. But if you look at the shutdown command, there's like 20 different options you could choose there, 20 different flags. You don't have to know those 20 different flags. Know maybe the one most popular one, and then don't worry about the rest. Just keep it moving. You could technically, I don't recommend this, you could technically skip all the performance-based questions and never answer them, and people have still passed the exam based on the reports they have given. Not really your first line of attack, quite honestly, but it makes people realize that it's not heavily weighted towards passing those and relying on that as the final score they're going to get. If you know the top 70 to 80% of those things, you're going to do fine on the exam.
Awesome. That is a huge relief. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Might save you a little bit of study time too. So use those exam objectives. That's your master list. Stick to that list. Know it well. You'll be just fine when you walk into the exam.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Professor.
Best of luck, Eric.
Thanks. Bye.
That's I see this all the time where people are so worried about the command line. You should, of course, know it. It's part of the exam. You might get a multiple choice question about it. You don't know. But it's not like you're going to get 5 different things that you have to do to a command line. That would be a Cisco exam. Those are hard. They give you a command prompt. You're on a switch. Do these 5 things. You're on a router. Do these 5 things. Here's a router and a switch. It's broken. Why is it broken? And you have to be at the command line. Let me type in a bunch of commands and see why it's broken. Let me show this. Let me show that. Let me do this. Let me do that. Let me type this in and bring it up. Let me type this in, bring the link down. Those are things you have to know for a Cisco type exam. Not so much for CompTIA, but it does help to know those because you could possibly get a command prompt and have to do something like that. You never know. Let's go down to South Florida, 561. Hello, caller. What's your name? Where are you calling from?
Hello, my name is Warren. I'm calling from Boynton Beach.
Warren, welcome. Thank you for calling. I used to live in South Florida, so recognize that area code. What can we do for you today?
Sure. I'm about to sit the exam in 2 weeks, and I'm a little nervous on the software part of it, but the hardware part I'm pretty confident. Do you have any recommendations on what to do before the exam, like any advice? How to approach it?
Well, you mentioned hardware and software kind of in the same breath. Are you planning to take both of the exams on the same day?
Yeah.
Wow.
Is that recommended, or should I space them out?
Well, if you're somebody who's been in the industry a while, you're very familiar with the hardware, you're very familiar with operating systems, and a lot of this tends to be review, except for certain things that you need to study, then it could be argued that taking both of the exams at the same time is perfectly reasonable. I would say, though, for the vast majority of people, taking both exams on the same day is not something I personally would recommend. The exams themselves, both the 901-902 and the 1001-1002, tend to have a completely self-contained set of exam objectives. There's very little overlap between both of those exams. They really are designed to be separate entities. That wasn't always the case, but now it really is. And you can study for instance, study for the 901, learn everything you need for the 901, go take that exam, pass that exam, and then you can effectively forget most of those things and shift gears over to the 902 and then take the 902 exam. So I highly recommend you consider doing something like that because that's a lot to remember across both of these exams to be able to do all of that unless you already have a very solid foundation in the industry. And that might help also with your question that says, gosh, this is a lot to learn. Yeah, I imagine it is if you're studying for both of those at the same time. So my first recommendation, if you're within 24 hours, I believe it is, you can reschedule that exam online. And even when I took the exam, I don't take the exams anymore because I want to talk about them and I don't want to be restricted by the candidate agreement anymore, but I still know what they're asking. So I can tell you about the exam without breaking any contractual agreement with CompTIA. But when you go into these exams, there is so much to know about these that it's a challenge, but you have the option 24 hours before to reschedule. And even when I took the exams, I put a separate day in between. I would take one day and one the other because having both of them the same day is just a lot of information to have to go through. And I recommend that as well. At a minimum, take them on different days. Ideally, study for one exam and only one exam only, take it, and then shift gears and study for the other one. That's the only thing I would recommend you change with your strategy.
Oh, yeah, I agree. So take it like a day apart to give me some time to review.
Most people take them months apart from each other because on average, it tends to take about 6 to 9 weeks to be able to study for these exams. So most people will study for the exam 6 to 9 weeks. They'll take their next exam 6 to 9 weeks later. I will tell you, some people will take it one exam. They will take literally years before taking the next exam and getting certified. So the time frame is up to your comfort level. You get to decide when to take the next exam after completing the first one. Maybe it is a day later, maybe it's a week later, maybe it's a month later. You get to make that decision.
Okay, that's some good advice. And I want to say thank you to taking your time to create these videos and the content. It really helped me so far, and it's been really great.
Oh, it's great to hear. I'm glad it's helped, and we'd love to hear how it went. Let us know how both of those exams go for you.
Okay, for sure. Thank you.
Thanks, Warren. That's always good to know, too, that when you have time, there's often been people that have said that there is a one year between exams that you have to comply with, but that's not actually the case. You have to complete both of your A+ exams before they are retired, which means, technically speaking, you could take your 220, 1001, or 1002 exam, because you can take them in any order. You take one of those exams today, you can wait 3 years and take the next one, as long as you're taking and passing that second one before the entire exam series is retired, because then you can do that. So you have people in the chat room going, no, it's 6 months. You have 6 months to complete the second. No, it is. I don't know where this come from either. I've looked everywhere to try to figure out where does this happen? Who is saying this? I can't find it. I can't find anyone who actually documents that, because it's not. CompTIA will tell you, no, you just take both of them before they are retired and you're fine. That's what the exam place there tells everyone, where you can tell them, no, you may be thinking about another manufacturer's exam. That is not the case with the CompTIA exams. Maybe that's the case. Maybe one of the other companies, well, who would that be? I'm trying to think of other certification exams that require you to take 2 separate exams to be certified. And I'm not getting one off the top of my head. There's certainly some where you have 2 or 3 to build on the certification. But I'm thinking, if you take one exam, you get nothing. You take the second exam, you're finally certified. A+ is the only one I can think of off the top of my head. There's certainly another one. I'm not saying there isn't. Someone will tell me, and they'll say, no, you're wrong, and I'm fine with that, because I'm just not familiar with one off the top of my head. It's not like ICND 1, you earn your CCENT by passing that one. You get your Cisco routing and switching by passing the ICND 2. But you get something when you pass the first one. See what I mean? So anyway, someone will certainly send me an email. It's probably in my inbox right now. Let's go back to calls. Let's go to 512 caller. What's your name? Where are you calling from?
Hey, Alex calling from Austin.
Welcome, Alex from Austin. What can we do for you, sir?
Hey, forgive me if you've already answered this, but with the 1001 and 1002 coming out, I think they're going to retire 901, 902 in, was it end of June or July?
Right, July 31st.
Okay. Is there any benefit to either hurry up and getting the 901 and 902 out of the way before that ends, or just waiting? Because I actually have a 901 scheduled for next month. I guess it would make sense to just go through with the 901 and 902, I guess.
The real benefit right now is there's tons of material available for the 901 exam. Just a wealth of information, especially when you compare it to the information available for the 1001 and 1002. There is almost nothing available. There's my course notes, and CompTIA has a book. That's it. There's nothing, but there's probably a couple more things that have come out in the last week, maybe. There's not a lot out there. I've got 38 videos of what probably will be about 100 and something. So there's just not a lot out there for the 1000 series, which is why most people are still working towards their 900 series and getting those done. And I will tell you, as someone who has been through these transition processes between the 600 to 700, between the 700 to 800, the 800 to 900, and now the 900 to 1000, people will be taking their second exam, sometimes both of their exams, on the last day the exams are offered. You can guarantee people will be passing their 900 series A+ exams on July 31st, because I get to hear from them when they do it. So don't worry that you're the only one out there that has taken this exam and now it's old and nobody likes it, and who's going to look at this certification, because you pass those 2 900 series exams, you get your A+ cert, and it's exactly the same A+ cert as the 1000 series. And by the way, you're not going to take one of these certifications again. If you passed your 700 series A+, and you simply kept renewing with your CEUs every 3 years, The last exam you took was the 700 series, but they still have exactly the same A+ exam that you would earn if you passed the 1000 series exam. So it's not about the exams that you take. It's more about what certification you get. You just need to find the one that gets you to that certification easiest.
Gotcha. Okay.
Hopefully that will give you a strategy and you can figure it out. And some people hearing that will go, all right, I need to shift to the 1000. Other people say I need to shift to 900. And either one is fine. Everybody's going to have a different idea and a different strategy based on what's going on in their world. And just pick the one that works for you and you'll be fine.
Okay, great.
Thanks, Alex. I appreciate the call.
All right, thanks. Appreciate you.
There is there's plenty of things that you could work through on the exams and figuring these out. This will be a lot easier to figure out next month when there's more books available. I don't even know when next month is. It's going to be later on, I think, probably in that scenario. But I'm not exactly sure when that's going to happen. But that is one of those things you have to worry about. You have to think about whenever you're trying to figure out which exam do I take. It's a tough one right now. You can kind of go either way. It's just the 1000 series, there's not a ton of stuff available out there right now. So I guess that's one where next month this will all work itself out and we'll have a much better conversation about this. I'm watching them very closely. What I really should do is really make a spreadsheet of what books are expected and what's coming out so that we can just watch it. Know exactly, oh, there's one. It comes out. I think I might do that after we're done here. So we can really start to see what different manufacturers are getting ready to put out there. And I can put some links together and you'll have at least some options for there. Do you have to pay for the exam objectives? You do not. Well, you have to pay with your name and your email address. They make you go through that. But if you go to professormesser.com/objectives, I redirect you over to the CompTIA site where they ask you to sign up for their email list. So there you go. That's what that's about. And those pieces relating to it. But the exam objectives themselves are free. And amazingly, they're free. As valuable as they are absolutely free. They are probably the most valuable thing you will use in studies for your exam. Because people still ask me every week, multiple times a week, what should I really be studying for my exam? Well, you should really be studying everything that's on the exam objectives. And they give you percentages that different sections will be asked about. So if your particular section is a smaller percentage and you're trying to figure out where should you spend your time, you might want to go to the sections where they're going to ask more questions. It depends on your strategy. That's, again, you're going to have to figure that one out. You have to put down your line of thinking on that and go through that process. Let me quickly see. We're going to scroll back in the chat real quick. There were a few things there, and being able to do that. Some people said, and this came up also yesterday or a day ago, 2 days ago at the other study group about writing a book. There's not enough books out. Why don't I write a book? And I'm just not interested at all. I did write actually 2 editions of a book on Nmap back before I started doing these videos. So that's quite a long time ago. But I just didn't enjoy it. It's not a thing I like to do. Turns out I like doing videos a lot better. So I'm going to stick with the videos. And what I think I'll put together for you is pick from some of these books that I like. Because there's not one book I like. There are multiple books I think I like if you were to combine some of them together. So I'll give you what my kind of top 3 list is for a book. You can watch some videos. I am working on sample tests for the 1001 and 1002. Those aren't coming out anytime soon. Those are on my list, and I have started the very beginnings of this, but I want to create some sample tests that are very similar to what you would get when you went into the exam. So the question came, some callers earlier were like, what should I expect with these performance-based questions? I want to give you performance-based questions that are really similar to what's going to be on the exam. I'm not going to copy anything. I don't want to. I'm not the kind of person to take what they're actually doing, actual questions, but I want to give you the same feel, the same voice, the same style of questions so that when you see them on the exam, that's just a normal cadence that you should come to expect from a CompTIA question so that you're ready for it. And I want to make them difficult enough that you can really learn something as you're going through them. So get plenty of Q&A and, of course, get plenty of hands-on. There are some labs available you can purchase, not for the 1000 series yet, but there's some labs you can get for the 900 series that might be worthwhile to look at. I always say get enough hands-on, and there are certainly links you can go to. For those of you working on either your 900 or your 1000 series, I mentioned this one in last month's study group, but this one's worth mentioning again, is the site modern.ie, M-O-D-E-R-N, modern.ie. Let me bring that up on my screen so you can see it. It redirects you over to developer.microsoft.com. That's what that is. It's the Microsoft developer website. And you may be thinking to yourself, oh, wait, I'm not a developer. I'm not planning to be a developer. And most of us in IT are not developers and have no interest in being developers. But this is very valuable for people on the IT side as well, especially people doing these types of certifications, because under the Tools pull-down menu, there's an option for virtual machines. Microsoft makes available to you Windows 7, Windows 8.1, and Windows 10 as ready-to-run virtual machines that you can run in Windows, in macOS, or in Linux. And then you've got Windows now running on your desktop, and you spent zero money. They're giving it to you for free. You just download them. It's like 2 gig to download them, but you can download them. Most of us can do that these days. That is the key to this, by the way, is that this follows the end user license agreement that says you're only going to use this for lab and testing type purposes. You can't use this as a primary desktop. You can't use it as a production system. Well, we're not looking for a production system. We need it for hands-on. So if you're somebody who you don't have money to spend on a lab, but you still want to pop open, you have Windows 7, you haven't even run Windows 10 yet, but you could download a Windows 10 VM, pop it open using VirtualBox for free on Windows 7, and now you've got Windows 10 running in a window. And you play around with that, and you can do anything you want to it. You could delete things in Windows 10 to see how it reacts, and then when it breaks, you can go back to the original piece again. You can take a snapshot before you make any changes, and then you can revert back to your snapshot, and everything is just the way before you messed it up. And you can start doing other things with it. But those are the three for your 1002 exam, 1001 as well, but mostly 1002. Those are the 3 operating systems you need: Windows 7, Windows 8, Windows 10. So that's where you should go to get those for free. That's a little tip, a little expert piece of information that hopefully will help you too, and get them through there. See, there's somebody in my chat room that says, I'm taking my 902 on July 31st, and you can't stop me. Good for you. So that was modern.ie, M-O-D-E-R-N. Like, it's hard to find a good reference. Like thoroughly modern Millie. Nobody knows what I'm talking about. It's modern, not like the past, but like modern. See, somebody put it in the chat room to get that. People are like, what? A Broadway reference? Really? Yes. It was a fine musical. And that's why you should go to that website for all of those things. I think I should stop while I'm ahead. But wait, there's another phone call. So it's too late for that. We're going to go back to the call. 313, thanks for calling. What's your name? Where are you calling from?
Nicholas Gubin from Warren, Michigan.
Nicholas, welcome. Thanks for checking in. What can we do for you, sir?
How you doing? So I'm actually planning on taking my 1001 and 1002 pretty soon, and my question is, do I have to take them like in a certain time, like between each other? Like, do I have to take my 1001 and then right after I have to take my 1002? Or how does that work?
You've got to finish both of them before the entire exam series is retired, which means if you were to take one of those exams today, you would have about 3 years and 6 months to take the next one.
Okay.
That's a
Thank
pretty
you
good
so
ramp.
much.
That's a pretty good runway. You should be able to do that one, Nicholas.
Okay, thank you.
Absolutely. Appreciate the call.
Thank you.
Oh, there it goes. You're welcome. Cut you off there. Sorry about that. The chat room asks, I heard macOS is on the new A+ exam. It is with its new nomenclature. It's no longer Mac OS. It's Lil Mac OS, one word. See, it's very different. macOS is actually in the 900 series as well. It's about the same amount of macOS on the 1000 series as there was on the 900 series. Not much difference there. Linux is also on the A+ exam, about the same amount of Linux on the 1000 series as there is on the 900 series. Not much difference there either. So if you've been studying for the 900 series and you learned all the macOS stuff for the 900 series, you're good. You're good for the 1000. When will the 900 series retire in Spanish? Have they given the retirement dates for non-English? Is it end of the year? I don't know. Let's look at CompTIA's A+ website and see if they're able to post that yet. I don't know that they have. Usually they post the retirement about 6 months before it retires, which means for this, they're saying the English will retire on July 31st. Other languages are to be determined. TBD. So I suspect it's probably going to be about 6 months after that. It may be more or less. It's up to CompTIA. I have no insights into what they're doing, into what worlds they live in. So I don't know. It may be that they are planning a 6-month delay. But when you're dealing with all of these languages, because they have German, Japanese, Portuguese, simplified Chinese, and Spanish. So you've got 5 of these different languages to work through. It's not a simple, just put it into Google Translate and we'll post it. You know, although earlier versions of the exams, I would argue that's what they did. I think they're actually doing a much better job with the style of question on their exams these days. So I don't think they're going to do that. I think it's going to be relatively quick though. You should be able to translate these pretty quickly. So we'll see what they do. I'm sure there's different nuances also in what you need to learn depending on where you are in the world as well. Some are a little different to have those there. From an Inside Baseball question, someone asks, please add PenTest Plus to my repertoire. I am not planning to do PenTest Plus. I'm so sorry. PenTest has, it's really popular. It's a sexy certification. Who doesn't want to do pen testing and find the vulnerabilities in the operating system? And they're great jobs to have. They're fun jobs to have. However, relative to all of the other available positions in IT security, they are a very small number of available positions. And I feel like I would be doing a disservice to do PenTest Plus because of its limited scope in actual use. That being said, it has appealed to me because a lot of people are asking for it. And so I'm balancing this weird thing where a lot of people are asking for it. It would probably be profitable to put it on your site. There's a capitalistic requirement that I have to keep my children fed. So that's an option. However, everybody will take the PenTest Plus and then try to get a PenTest job and realize there's not a lot out there and then yell about it. Why did you do this? So I don't want to have to deal with the yelling, I guess. Maybe that's the issue. If I could just, maybe I'm fine with the yelling and I could do the PenTest. So there's a yin and a yang going back and forth in my brain. Plus, there are other exams I would like to do that are not necessarily CompTIA related that I have on my list. Whenever I produce an exam, a training course series, it is a month-long process. Not a month-long process, a month-long process. So it could take 3 to 4 to 6 months depending on the exam series. A+ is really big. It's really 2 exams. So I would say, let's just very conservatively say it takes 3 months to produce a certification series, course notes book, and hopefully some Q&A. So that's the thing I have to think about. Do I dedicate 3 months to that, or would it make more sense and be better for everybody if I did another thing for that time frame? And that's the challenge I have, is going back and forth. I balance this between also scaling it out. I don't want to hand off parts of the creation of these courses to other people that perhaps would create content that was not the quality I wanted. So I could have other people doing these things, but that's not my goal either. It doesn't fit the model I've created. I've created a very specific model that has a very specific set of tasks. Much of it done by me, some of it done by others, but much of it is under the control of me because there's a quality component to a training course. And so from a business perspective, I go back and forth with my vice president, who's my wife, who gets to yell at me about that. But what if we did this? What if we did that? We go through all these scenarios. And so PenTest Plus is not at the top of our list right now, but it's on my list. That's all I can tell you. Now I have a big list, and there's no way I'll ever get through everything on my list. So just because it's on a list doesn't mean anything for those. Another question in the chat room. My class is studying the 220, 901, and 902, even though the 1001 and 1002 is available. Well, yeah, that is available. It's been available 3 weeks. So it's not like we have a lot of content available. How much of a difference is there between the two? About 20%. You can rewind the beginning of the first hour. Can't rewind yet, but when this is over, you can go rewind to the first 5 minutes of the first hour where I really go into more detail about what those differences are. So that's one of the challenges you have right now. If you pass the 1001, do you get some sort of credit to show employers that you're working towards the full A+ certification? No, you do not. And most employers don't care unless you pass that second exam and have the A+, and only then do they care. So I mentioned earlier, there's not a lot of certification exams like that out there. There's not a lot out there where you take an entire exam and you pass it and you get nothing. But that's the A+ exam. You have to pass both of them for people to really take that legitimately. For better or worse, maybe that's a good thing, that they know you went through both. It's done. You've got your A+ and off to the races. But it is kind of a challenge, isn't it? You spend so much time studying. It's a hard exam. You go take the 901, you pass it, and you got nothing to show for it but another 3 months of study and passing the other exam. So yeah, it is sort of an all or nothing scenario, unfortunately. Now, some employers, though, it doesn't hurt to put it on your resume that passed the 901 working towards the A+ with the 902. You might get through an HR filter, and there may be managers like they can appreciate that. So this also may be something that is dependent on who you're talking to at any particular time. So there's a fine wiggle room answer for you, wasn't it? Yes, it matters. No, it doesn't. There you go. That's my answer. Aren't you glad you tuned in? What good was that? I guess there was some nuance there. Wasn't quite so black and white. But I would say the vast majority of employers, though, want to see it done. They do. That's sort of the impression I get from hiring managers. That's the impression I get from people who talk to hiring managers. Maybe that's wrong. Maybe it is. I don't know. Ask the hiring manager you're sitting with, and then tell me. That's how I usually do it too, is I get the intel from the street to be able to do that. You took and failed the 901 in December, passed the 902 December. Somebody else did them 3 days apart. So 3 days apart, you passed the 901, passed the 902, but failed the 901, and you're going to take the 901 again February 13th. Where should you focus? Okay, here's where you should focus. Before you walked out of the exam room, I'm assuming that the exam center was really, really good, and they gave you a sheet of paper that said you failed, but that sheet of paper also told you every section where you got a question wrong. They don't give you the questions you got wrong. They just tell you that you got a question wrong in section 3.6, which deals with motherboards or whatever it is, whatever section 3.6 is now on the 1001 exam. They're taking the 901. So we go 3.6. Which one is that? Is that mobile devices? So you know now at least what sections you missed. Those should be a place you should absolutely emphasize first. You're taking the next one on February 13th. Today is the 9th. No, today's the 7th. So you got some time. You got about a week. So definitely go through those sections where you got them wrong the first time. The challenge you have, of course, is you're going to get a completely different exam, which may have a completely different mix of questions that may not include the ones you missed the first time. So this is a best guess we're doing. But what you should absolutely do, you've got a week. This is perfect timing, because people often say, I got my test in an hour. What should I study? You've got a week. Get your exam objectives. Go through that entire list. Start crossing off the things that you're really solid on. Cross off the things, oh, they asked me about that in the first exam. I knew that one. Cross that one off. Anything that you're really feeling weak on, you may want to draw a circle around or rate how weak you are. Between 1 and 10, how comfortable am I with this? I'm about a 3. Now go back down the list to other things. Oh, it's asking me about this on the 901. How comfortable am I with that? About a 5, about a halfway. Let's keep going down the list. So now you have the things that you're not comfortable with, and you've scaled them on how uncomfortable you are. Given how much time you have, you may want to stick with the ones that are higher number, or you may want to go back to the ones that are a lower number if you have more time to study and really get those up to a 9 or a 10. So that's focus on the exam objectives. Yes, yes, yes. Focus, focus. That's your main checklist. That is the big, big checklist. If you know everything in the exam objectives and you're a 9 or 10 on all of those topics on the exam objectives, you're going to do fine. Yes, I know. The exam objectives do not give many details on how thoroughly you need to know a subject. And in those cases, I recommend you reference my video content because I do know how deep they want you to go on these. I created a 600 series course, a 700 series, an 800, a 900, and now the 1000. And I have been tracking and watching questions and results and answers for that entire time. Things have changed over the years with what they expect. Things have changed with what you should see. But I think I have a pretty good idea of what you should be looking for or how deep these topics go. If you notice in a particular topic that I'm not going very deep, that is probably because the exam does not go that deep. I could take any of these topics and talk for a day about them. Let's talk about video. We could talk about video for a day. My video on video interfaces is what? 15 minutes, 20 minutes? So it's not a day. But it does give, I think, a scope, a perspective of how deep some of these things go. Another popular question along those same lines in the chat room from Wizard Gamer 42 is, so I could just watch your videos and pass the exam? Huh? Yeah. Well, I guess you could, but why would you do that? Why would anybody use any single source for something as important as an IT industry certification exam when so many resources are available to you? And so I always say, I haven't said today, but now we get to go through the 4 things. 4 things you should have to maximize the results you're going to have on your A+ exam or in any certification exam. Number 1, you need a good book. Books are able to provide you with much more density of information in a much shorter time frame because you can read very fast, and they get to show pictures in there. They get to put a lot more info in a book. If I was to take any of the industry certification books and make videos of them, the video series would be 100 hours long because that's how much information is in a book. It's a different way to learn. Get a good book. Watch the videos, whether it's mine or anyone else's or multiples of those. Watch a good video series because watching it teaches you differently than reading about it. Watch them in conjunction. Read a little something in a book. Watch the video that relates to what you just read. So those are the first 2 things. Those are 2 things out of the 4. The third thing is get plenty of Q&A. A lot of the books have a lot of Q&A. There are some books out there that are nothing but Q&A. There are a number of people that are providing Q&A resources on the internet. Some are good, some are not good. So you need to go to a well-honed, well-respected place to get plenty of Q&A so that you're comfortable with that. And the last one, get some hands-on. Get as much hands-on as you can. As I mentioned, there's something about getting that brain working when you're typing and you're seeing it on the screen, a muscle memory, something about the brain happening there. It makes a difference. So absolutely get familiar with doing plenty of hands-on with these topics. If they're showing you how to install Windows, why don't you install Windows yourself if you have a installation media handy? When they show Performance Manager, pop open Performance Manager on your computer. Load up some statistics. Watch what happens to those statistics when you surf around the internet. Does CPU go up or down? Does disk usage go up or down? You're able to see all of that Performance Manager. So Performance Monitor. See, yeah, we got the name wrong. So do those types of things. Go to Task Manager. Bring up Performance Monitor and Task Manager at the same screen. Look at the difference between those two. Try customizing some of the columns in Task Manager. Watch how much traffic is going out of your disk I/O versus your CPU. So there's all kinds of things you can do to work through more hands-on with these operating systems and become familiar with these different applets and different commands and different utilities. That's your fourth thing. Book, video, Q&A, hands-on. That's your 4. Stick with those 4. You're going to pass your exam. That's what you should do. So whenever I do that, I kind of work through those ideas. I try to tell people, yes, I built the video course. You could just watch the video course. And I really think it gives you the bulk of what you would need to pass the exam. And people have passed their exam by just using my videos. But don't do that. Why would you don't do that? That doesn't even make sense to me. Don't go there and use those things. It just doesn't make a good sense to have those there. So maybe it's one of those things where once you start going through them and getting familiar, you'll realize, okay, you get in a zone, work through it in the book, watch the video, get some hands-on, do some final Q&A on it, and just keep it moving. And move those numbers up in your list of things in your course objectives, and you're going to be fine. Well, that brings us to the end. Can you believe it? Of another hour. We went through all of our Q&A at the beginning. We went through all of the questions from the chat room. Your calls were fantastic today. Thank you for calling in from literally around the world. We really could not do this without your help and your support. And it's one of those things where it surprises me every time we turn on the stream, you're there. And we are so grateful for it. We've got another one of these study groups next week is the Network Plus study group Wednesday at noon. So it's a different day. We did Tuesday, Thursday this week. Next week is Wednesday. Can't wait to do it again. We're going to do more Q&A from the latest Network Plus exam. I've got plenty of another time. We'll open up the calls. We'll take chat. We'll talk about anything. We'll talk about how that Division 2 beta went. There's all kinds of things happening in my world. No, I'm editing video. I'm not playing Division 2 beta. I promise. Playing a little bit of Division 2 beta. Thanks for being here. And we've got plenty more of this next month. Feel free to come on back. We're going to do it all over again with our 220, 1001, and 220, 1002 study groups. Thanks for being here. We will see you next time on the A+ study group.